Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Brad Perry, the Interim President and CEO of Calgary Economic Development, and we thank you for joining us for two very, very important announcements today from the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund. But before I start, I would like to acknowledge that in the spirit of respect, reciprocity, and truth, we honor, acknowledge the Mohintis and the traditional Treaty 7 territory and oral practices of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, and as well as the Stoney Nakoda and Tsuut'ina nations. We acknowledge this territory is home to the Métis nations of Alberta Region 3 within this historical Northwest Métis homeland. Finally, we acknowledge all nations, Indigenous and non, who live, work, and play on this land and who honor and celebrate this territory. Thank you again for joining us, everybody. Just a bit of housekeeping before we jump into the programming. If you do have a question that you'd like to pose to our panel today, please put them in the Q&A and we will address them as we come in. Joining us today for this amazing announcement is Nancy Laird, the Vice Chair and Board of Directors of the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund, Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek, Shelley Coupiers, co-founder of the 51, Jim DeWall of Creative Destruction Labs and the U of C, Ajay Agrawal, the founder of Creative Destruction Labs, and Ed McCauley, the president of the University of Calgary. Also joining us today will be the Honorable Daniel Vandal, Minister of Northern Affairs, Minister responsible for Prairie Economic Development Canada, and Minister responsible for the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency. I will now ask Nancy Laird, Vice Chair of Calgary Opportunity Investment Fund, to open up.
Thank you, Brad. On behalf of the Osef Board of Directors, I am pleased to announce a pair of significant funding agreements today that we are confident will play an important role in Calgary's economic future. We have talked a lot about momentum in Calgary's economy this year, and both of today's announcements will support that trend. The first agreement is for Calgary Destruction Labs Rockies. CDL-Rockies has been selected to earn up to $3 million over the next 5 years. The agreement is part of the RFP for business accelerators that was announced in March. The second agreement is with Movement51, which is the not-for-profit arm of a groundbreaking Calgary-founded organization, the 51. The pilot project will support women identifying investors and can earn up to $330,000 from Osef in the next 2 years. CDL-Rockies and Movement51 are the 19th and 20th organizations to receive funding from Osef and the 5th and 6th announcements that have been made in 2021. Both these organizations have ties to the University of Calgary's Haskayne School of Business, and we believe the connection between business and the post-secondary institutions will help drive a knowledge economy. Creative Destruction Labs is an innovative founded a decade ago in Toronto that is connecting businesses with a growing network of universities with top MBA programs in North America and Europe. CDL-Rockies will offer programs in 3 streams: ag tech, energy, and its sector-agnostic program Prime. It will add a 4th stream focused on another key sector for Calgary in 2022. CDL-Rockies will support 120 ventures through this program and streams, and another 200 companies through the Nurture program. Leveraging funds from other orders of government is a priority for OCIF in our decision-making processes. PrairieCan's support for CDLR today reflects the value of collaboration by governments to support economic growth and diversity. Support for the organizations such as Movement51 and CDL-Rockies will accelerate development of early stage and scaling companies and help us achieve the goal to create more than 2,300 startups and 1,000 core tech companies by 2031. There are a few economic accelerators as powerful as equality, diversity, and inclusion. This is why the support for Movement51 is so important. Movement51 is a not-for-profit organization that was established by the 51 to address financial feminism inequalities that affect women and gender diverse people across Canada. There is a clear gap in funding and support for women-led startups and investments. The 51 demonstrates strong leadership in addressing the issue and it has the experience to deliver programming and support for this gap, for us to fill this gap. OCIF has had success with smaller investments in initiatives such as NPower Canada, Lighthouse Labs, Intergen, and we expect Movement 51 to have an impact well beyond the size of our investment. At OCIF, we work closely with industry, academia, and the citizens of this great city to advance initiatives that will help address key challenges and create new opportunities as we move to Calgary and the new economy. I want to thank the teams of both CDL-Rockies and Movement 51 for all the work to get us here today. This is an exciting day for Calgary, and I think it's the start of many more exciting days in the business community for Calgary in the years ahead.
Thank you, Nancy. I would like now to call on the newest member of the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund Board, the Mayor of Calgary, Mayor Jyoti Gondek.
Thanks very much, Brad and Nancy. I am particularly excited about this announcement. I can remember my days back at Haskayne. I remember sitting in that office that Dean DeWald is in right now, talking about creative destruction labs and thinking, how do we bring this concept here? And I'm just so pumped that we have managed to do this. I'm so excited that it's in the Rockies, and it showcases not only how smart our city is, but how beautiful our setting is. There's so much great work that gets done through CDL-Rockies, and oh my goodness, Movement 51, you know, financial feminism at its best. I'm excited that we are investing in women-led enterprises. It was the 51 that taught me how women in this city are not able to access the capital that they need to. Women-led enterprises are outperforming male-led enterprises by 63%, and yet they're only accessing 3% of the available capital. This bold move will make sure that more women with great ideas will be able to perform well, not only in our economy, but also showcase on a global stage what we can do. I could not be more excited about these two announcements because it goes back in time for me when this was early days of could we do this? And today we're demonstrating that absolutely we can. So thanks for the opportunity to join you on this announcement day.
Fantastic. Thank you, Your Worship. I'd now like to ask Shelley Coupiers, the co-CEO and Chief Growth Officer of the 51, to speak on Movement 51 for this important initiative.
Good morning. Thank you, Brad. Good morning, Mayor Gondek, Nancy, Brad, everyone on the call. I'm thrilled to be here. It was quite a bit of work to get here in my capacity as board director of Movement 51. And on behalf of everyone at Movement 51 and the 51, including my co-founder, co-CEO, Judy Fairburn, let me just say how excited we are to be sharing this announcement with OCIF. The 51 is creating a new critical mass of women identifying and gender diverse investors, making Calgary the center for women-powered capital. Our community of over 17,000 strong is building a financial feminist economy, and we are proud to be headquartered in Calgary. Earlier this year, we established Movement 51 to address the significant gaps that exist for women identifying and gender diverse individuals to fully participate in the economy. As education and developing financial acumen is critical start for change, our partnership with the University of Calgary Haskayne School of Business was a natural fit. The creation of the Financial Feminism Investing Lab was born from a shared goal between our organizations to make early stage investing accessible. Graduates from our program, Early Stage Investing course, are equipped with knowledge and the tools needed to begin activating their capital in a way that asks them to invest in the world they want to see. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Jim, Conwell, Andrea, Tanya, the entire team at Haskayne. Some of you are on the call today, and for their ongoing partnership and collaboration of this Financial Feminism Investing Lab. Movement 51 and the 51 has been stood up by sheer effort of capital, sweat equity of our founders, investors, entrepreneurs, community, and our public partnerships are so necessary to co-invest and accelerate Calgary's innovation ecosystem, growth, and impact. With OCIF's funding and championship of Movement 51, we will be able to grow the program to reach more Calgarians as investors, entrepreneurs, and of course, financial feminists. The investment from OCIF will help power Movement51's ability to expand programming and initiatives to send over 160 women identifying participants back into our ecosystem to thoughtfully invest in companies that are innovative, future fit, and seek to further diversify our economy. On behalf of everyone at Movement51 and the 51, we're honored and grateful to receive funding from OCIF, and we sincerely look forward to working together over the coming years. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Shelley. I would now ask Dr. Jim DeWald, Dean, Haskayne School of Business and member of Creative Destruction Lab's Strategic Advisory Board, to talk a little bit about CDL-Rockies. Jim?
Well, thanks so much, Brad, and good morning, everyone. Mayor Gondek, so nice to see you, and Shelley. Honestly, let me start by congratulating the 51 and Movement51. There is no other institution that we would feel so honored to be able to share this moment with. What a great morning. And really, when I think about leadership in our city and moving us to the future, you can't get beyond Mayor Gondek and Shelley for the great contributions that they're making. And then there's a Creative Destruction Lab. And so people might ask, what is the Creative Destruction Lab, or CDL? Quite simply, it is one of Canada's greatest innovation success stories. It is a visionary brainchild of U of T professor Ajay Agarwal, who you will be able to hear from just a little bit later on. But I want to describe the impact of CDL by sharing a bit of my own story. Just over 20 years ago, I actually co-founded a tech startup, and it grew fast. It grew in a year to 10 locations in cities from Vancouver to Orlando. My life was sitting on a plane, flying to Silicon Valley, to New York, Toronto, Vancouver, and visiting boardrooms and living rooms of well-heeled business leaders and investors in Calgary, just trying to raise money and trying to get advice to make our venture a success. Now, ultimately, after 3 years, we ran out of money. We ran out of good advice. We failed, but our idea was sound, and others took that idea and have built massively scalable businesses. If CDL had existed, my story could have been quite a bit different. CDL works, and it works because it focuses on 3 key and very distinct areas. Number one, we have an unparalleled network. New venture founders are surrounded by the most powerful minds in business, science, and technology. Nowhere else will new venture founders have this amount of brain power and dedicated to their venture at one time. Number two, it's an objective-based process. Ventures must meet targets in 8-week sprints, which forces founders to be accountable and to work on immediate needs to move their company forward. And number three, there's a relentless focus on knowledge transfer and high quality business judgment. And this is important, at no cost to the ventures, no cost to the investors, no cost to the mentors. CDL has no equity in any of the ventures, does not take IP, does not charge fees to the startups or anybody who participates. This is why today's announcement is so very important. On the back of the generosity of Calgary philanthropists and corporate partners, to date, we've raised $4 million that has allowed us in our first 4 years to do great things. Nearly 70 companies have graduated from the CDL-Rockies program, creating over 500 jobs and over $400 million in new capital raised. 200 million of that has stayed right in Alberta with Alberta-based CDL-Rockies companies. Now, with the funding announced today, CDL-Rockies will be able to assist up to 120 deep technology companies in Calgary and Southern Alberta by recruiting them to participate in our core programs, which is mentioned earlier, Prime, Energy, and Ag. And our new stream that'll come on next year. But CDL-Rockies will assist up to 200 additional companies through our new program called Nurture. Nurture is very unique. It will help prepare companies that are not yet ready for CDL-Rockies core program by connecting them with advisors and resources in Alberta's innovation ecosystem. Nurture will create a sustainable pipeline of new technology startups in Southern Alberta. Based on the record of CDL-Rockies alumni, we anticipate that the companies that CDL-Rockies assist could raise in excess of 150 million in capital and create over 450 jobs in the next 5 years. And I'm going to say that I think is a conservative estimate. The funding from Prairies Canada will also support new staff and outreach activities for CDL-Rockies Ag Stream. This means more Western Canadian growth stage ag tech companies will participate in CDL-Rockies programming and access mentorship, business support services, and global investment opportunities. As Dean of Calgary's Business School, it is so exciting to have a program like this housed on our campus. It benefits MBA students who, by the way, this is a program as well. Our students are deeply involved. It engages our faculty in new and impactful ways. And frankly, it's a game changer for our city. Whenever I attend a CDL session, I'm inspired by all the people in the room. Calgary's economy is changing, and CDL has been and will continue to be a catalyst for that change. Thank you so much for the very important investment by OCIF and in Prairies Canada. You can count on us. We're going to give you a very solid return on that investment. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you very much, Jim, and we know you definitely will. And great segue into the next founding partner in this venture, which is our friends from the federal government, Prairies Can. So I'd now like to introduce Daniel Vandal, the Minister of Northern Affairs, Minister responsible for Prairie Economic Development Canada, and Minister responsible for the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency. Minister.
Hello, bonjour. It's a pleasure to be joining you virtually today. I'm joining you from my office in Ottawa, the unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory. It's a pleasure to take part in this event today with an organization that is doing significant work on behalf of the Alberta and Western Canadian innovators and entrepreneurs. Creative Destruction Lab, or CDL, has helped mentor and support as many as 1,000 founders representing 500 companies. We are fortunate to have a CDL location based at the University of Calgary. CDL-Rockies gives promising Alberta technology companies access to resources and services that help them scale up with confidence. We have tremendous potential to add value to the traditional agricultural sector, generate new businesses, and create high-paying jobs. Alberta agri-tech and agri-food businesses have shown they have the drive, they have the innovation, know-how, and creativity to bring new ideas to markets. Companies like greenhouse vegetable producer Whole Leaf in Coaldale and environmental company Livestock Water Recycling in Calgary are examples of what can be achieved when technology and agricultural technology knowledge are combined. Many of the most promising businesses in agri-tech and agri-food are small and medium-sized companies. They are on the cusp of scaling up and reaching the global market, and we know that they could use some support to reach the next stage of growth and expansion. That's why I'm proud to announce today that the Government of Canada, through Prairies Can, is investing more than $1.8 million towards Creative Destruction Lab Rockies. Our funding will help CDL expand its agricultural program stream to serve more Western Canadian agri-tech firms. These companies will give access to business services, one-on-one mentorship, and a range of global investors. These expanded services could benefit as many as 140 businesses and help them generate more than $80 million of private sector investment, doubling the number of businesses that CDL-Rockies was previously able to support through its agricultural stream. The agricultural sector supports thousands of jobs, families, and communities across Western Canada. I want to thank Calgary Economic Development, the City of Calgary, the University of Calgary, and the industry partners for coming together to support this initiative. Prairies Can and our government will continue to be your partner, and I wish CDL-Rockies every success as it moves forward in its expanded programming. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Appreciate that. Now I'd like to take a moment and ask the founder of Creative Destruction Labs, Ajay Agarwal, to have some comments for us.
Thanks very much, Brad. Well, Jim DeWald did a great job already of describing Creative Destruction Lab. So I'll just say that we're really grateful for this support. Creative Destruction Lab has a mission, which is to enhance the commercialization of science for the betterment of humankind. And what I thought I would offer here is a viewpoint from somebody who's worked across the nation on this, of what stands out about Calgary. So in other words, we have a Creative Destruction Labs in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Montreal, and Halifax, and then some in Europe and in the US. Calgary has stood out. In fact, my view is Canada needs a lot more Calgary. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. When we were first exploring the idea of doing a Creative Destruction Lab in Calgary, we had one of our graduate students who, when we first started Creative Destruction Lab, it was a ragtag bunch of graduate students that were running the shop. And one was visiting Calgary. And they had a meeting, a couple of meetings in Calgary, and it was looking like, well, maybe this would be something worth pursuing. And this student was flying back on Monday. And so on the Sunday, it was arranged that he would meet with Elizabeth Cannon, who at the time was the president of the University of Calgary. And he called me to say he was having this meeting. And I said, wait a minute, you're telling me a university president has taken a meeting with you, a graduate student, on a Sunday morning to talk about this? And he said, yes. And I thought, okay, we are dealing with a different animal here. This would not happen at any other university that I've worked with. Then when the way we get started, one of our litmus tests for whether a city is receptive to Creative Destruction Lab is whether the business leaders will step up and support it because they view it as important. And so, so one of the criteria is we have this a initiative called the Founding Partners, and the Founding Partners each commit $300,000 over 3 years. And so the idea is the city must identify 10 of them. So that's 10 founding partners in order to launch the site. And Jim DeWald and one of his colleagues at the university used to be head of the radiology department, Dr. Chen Fong, and their team put together a dinner. And at that dinner, they explained the idea. One of the founding partners from Toronto came in and explained his commitment, of a fellow named John Harris. And by the end of that evening, the city of Calgary had 10, in fact, it was 11 people by midnight who had raised their hand to say they were committing to support the lab. That was my second signal that Calgary is a different animal than the other cities across the country in terms of this was a much more entrepreneurial city than what we had experienced setting across. Halifax, by the way, comes a close second. Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal, not even close. And so my last point of what's different from my vantage point about Calgary, and Jim mentioned sitting in those CDL sessions. They are a sight to behold. This is a room of business leaders, mostly from Calgary, but also some from Edmonton, some from Saskatoon in the ag stream. And they mean business. They don't fool around. They don't do a lot of talking. They just mean business. And boy, do we need that to compete. We need that across the country in every sector. We need that to compete. And I feel sometimes like in this country, we don't recognize the level of competition, particularly from Asia, but really from the rest of the world to compete. And so I feel that the last point here of what makes Calgary distinct is that we are in a very peculiar time where it feels to me like the core industrial base of Calgary is being thrown under the bus by the rest of the country. And we've got to change the narrative around that. And I'm hoping that the rest of the country will step up in the sense that the energy industry is so important, and we have so many smart people in that industry. There's no question that that industry has evolved a lot and will continue to evolve, but we can't dismiss the importance of that sector and act as if it is so easily dismissible. And so that's the third way in which, in my view, Calgary stands out in terms of the activities at the CDL sites, is that this is a location where there is a deep expertise in a domain that is critical, not just to this country, but globally. And yet the narrative has shifted so significantly that it feels like it's a parallel universe, in my view. That on the one hand, people can't consume enough energy, and on the other hand, they're so quick to throw the industry under the bus. So in my view, Calgary is going to be playing a very important role nationally and globally as we navigate through what the planet is going to go through with respect to energy. And so I'm looking forward to the thought leadership that comes out of Calgary, and I sure hope the other main economic centers of Canada get behind Calgary in the way that I've seen Calgary get behind the urgency to innovate at CDL. So thank you for the support. By the way, CDL is designed to be market-based, and so we're card-carrying proponents of markets, and so you have to think hard, in terms of asking government for support for a program that is predicated on markets. And what we're trying to do with Creative Destruction Lab is solve a market failure. So where markets don't function, which is bringing together, just like what to me was at least my interpretation of what I understood of the 51, addressing a very specific, where there's an extreme failure in the market for capital for particular people. And CDL is addressing that at a more general level, but specifically focused on commercialization, science, and tech. We don't take that lightly. And in my view, announcements are easy. I think, Brad, what I would encourage you to do is call us all back here 2 years from now to report on what we've done with taxpayer money, to make sure to keep everyone's feet to the fire, that they get a good return on their investment, and society benefits on the dimensions that 51 is working on, which are of course critical for equality in society, and it's critical that we do what we're doing on this technology dimension, because we've got to compete. We simply have to compete. And in my view, Calgary number one, Halifax number two are really have an entrepreneurial spirit that we need right across this country, coast to coast. So thank you very much. Also to Prairies Canada, OCIF and Prairies Canada, for supporting this.
Thank you, Ajay. And you know what, we will be holding you to that. And you will have so many OCIF people calling you all the time, asking these same questions, but that's fantastic. Love the passion, and thank you for putting us number one, because we think we're pretty special too. I'd like to now ask Ed McCauley, the president of the University of Calgary, and also who works very closely with the 51 and CDLR, for some comments.
Hello, I'm Ed McCauley, President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Calgary. On behalf of the entire university, my sincere thank you to the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund and to Prairies Can for your generous support to the Creative Destruction Lab Rockies at the Haskayne School of Business. The Creative Destruction Lab Rockies plays a vital role in Alberta's innovation ecosystem in several unique ways. First is the way this program works to accelerate startups in science and technology. CDL serves as an important bridge between innovation and commercialization. Second is the benefit of tapping into a global network. CDL connects us to this network, bringing in the talent, ideas, capital, and technologies from around the world to strengthen the innovation landscape here in our city and our province. Third, CDL supports fantastic hands-on learning opportunities for our MBA students. These are the business leaders and entrepreneurial thinkers who are already shaping the future of our economy. And we're setting them up for success through CDL, offering opportunities for them to learn from real-world experiences and grow their professional network. Since the Haskayne School of Business joined the CDL network in 2017, the impact has been incredible. 69 companies have successfully completed the program in Calgary. And CDL-Rockies companies based right here in Alberta have raised over $200 million in capital. Quite simply, the CDL program works, and the investment announced today will only help to fuel that growth and spur innovation right here in Calgary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And that concludes the formal portion of our program today, and that will go to questions. As a reminder, if you do have a question, please submit them in the chat and we will direct them to our panelists. The first question is actually for Shelley. Shelley, we have a question from Scott Dipple. Can you outline the challenges facing women in this field and provide specific examples of how this OCIF investment will provide more opportunities?
Yes, absolutely. It's a great question, Scott, and we get it a lot. Today, we know that women receive just 2.3% of venture funding, and that's on a global scale. Those statistics are quite consistent across different geographies. Yet, as we heard from Mayor Gondek, we know that women are outperforming their male peers by 63% with the same amount of capital in hand. So there's a huge opportunity. How do we get more women funded? But how do we change the capital system to get more women funded? And so that's really what we're doing. Movement 51 and the 51 is really trying to change where the capital is coming from in order to close that gap. And we're doing that by seeking capital from women identifying individuals. So we're creating a capital system that brings a gender diverse perspective and invests in what we want to see. For example, the 51's Fund 1 is 90% women's capital. That's unheard of in a Canadian venture fund to have that much women's capital, private women's capital on hand. And 30% of our investors are new to early stage investing. So what we're doing is we're changing where the capital is coming from so that more women are being funded so that we can change that statistic. Specifically, what we will be doing is be taking our candidates, our Financial Feminism Investing Lab candidates through a 6-week program where they will learn how to perform early stage investing and build confidence to do that. But we'll also be working with them to actually activate their capital. So there's a very practical outcome from this program. All of this is predicated on what we know is that women will have 65% of the wealth in Canada by 2030. And so what we are trying to do is really ready women identifying individuals to look for different opportunities to invest this wealth and their capital. And we're identifying women as being a target investment.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shelley. Just as a side note, unfortunately, the mayor had to leave a bit early. She had a meeting at City Hall. The second question is, again, a follow-up from Scott regarding OCIF specifically. And the question is, how much of the $100 million OCIF funding is now committed, including today's announcement? So as of today, we have $59 million committed, and we have $11 million in the pipeline coming into the Q1 of next year. So we'll be announcing those investments coming up in the new year. I have another question from Darren Kraus. Darren asks, can you explain the advantage of funding accelerators? The public may see this kind of investment as more speculative than funding a traditional business where they see something more tangible like jobs and products. And why is funding accelerators part of the OCIF strategy? I think that's a great question, and maybe I'll ask Nancy to chime in as well. But Darren, really what it was is when we looked at the marketplace and the landscape, we understood that a lot of the applicants that we had coming into OCIF originally, 50% didn't qualify for the minimum threshold. And what that showed us is we have to go back and understand the marketplace. And as we looked at the landscape and understood our community goals of getting to 1,000 core tech companies, it was imperative that we started helping local companies accelerate. I think we've heard a lot of this in Calgary before, where we don't necessarily have a startup problem, we have a scale-up problem. And so the ability to invest and support accelerators on a global basis will bring Calgary companies to global markets more quickly, more effectively, and start to produce and create those jobs and opportunities for our community as we start to grow. We believe that that strategy, along with our other strategy of still focusing on anchors and ecosystem building plays, is the right mix for us as we look at our thesis around the investments themselves. And I'm not sure if Nancy, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, Brad, I think you've done a good job. I think that the key thing here is that the comment you made about having lots of early stage companies, but really not knowing how to materialize their vision. And it really pivoted us towards ecosystem investing. And now we're actually becoming more of an ecosystem investor than we are in direct investing in performance metrics. So I think we're not following the market now. I think we're leading it a bit more with the ecosystem investment we're making. And I hope we will see the formation of companies more quickly and more strongly supported by the community.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nancy. We don't seem to have any more questions in the queue. So I want to say thank you very much, Nancy. Thank you, Shelley, Ajay, and of course, Jim. Thank you very much for taking part today. And thank you to everybody on the line for taking the time this morning and listening to this amazing announcement that's going to, again, help our ecosystem grow and become, as AJ said, the best place in Canada to be.
Yeah.